Welcome to Hubcast Aidalon, the podcast where two friends take an excellent adventure into the world of Hubworld Aidalon.
Hey, welcome back to Hubcast Aidalon. This is our second episode. We're going to talk today about the company that created Hubworld Aidalon. It's the name of our podcast, Hubcast Aidalon. If you didn't catch that, that's totally me being a 40-year-old dad and making dad jokes. So there we go. But Earthborne Games, headed by Andrew Navarro, and I hope I get all these names correct. If I didn't, my apologies to all involved, because I am not perfect, and I will not always. I will always try to be perfect, but I will never make the mark. So, I'm here with my partner in crime, my friend, and my teammate from Team Nisho, Steven.
Hello, everyone.
So we're going to talk a little bit today about, like I said, the company that created this game that we both found and love. Then kind of a little bit about the games they created, what we know about them, what our thoughts are about those, and then a little bit about the campaign that just ended successfully. So congratulations, guys. We have both put in our money. We'll both be getting our sets. And I know I touched on this in the first episode about how much I love Team Covenant and how Team Covenant have been an integral part of my gaming history, whether it was working with FFG at Gen Con and whatnot and seeing the guys there, buying their product back in the LCG days, because before Etsy became a thing where like everyone will make tokens for you and whatnot, these guys were at the forefront selling like plastic tokens and whatnot for any of the games. So you could get some really wicked tokens. And they went as far as like a Christmas, and this is, I guess, me bragging about Team Covenant for no reason. Free promotion, you guys. Remember that when it comes time to buy me like a bag of oranges at Christmas, I guess. I don't know. But at Christmas time, they would create these holiday tokens. So there were the tokens that already existed, but they'd be like in red and green colors. So if you wanted the holiday set of like your tokens for your card game, you could get like holiday versions where like maybe it was like a range ruler for like the miniature X-Wing game, but it would look like a candy cane that had a little peppermint striping to it or something. So like stuff like that was like super cute, totally not needed. Like you already probably had the tokens from them, but then you were like, I do have the tokens, but I want more tokens because, you know, us nerds, we love our accessories.
That is true. Accessories are key. You have to. You got to roll out that nice play mat or that.
You know, the tokens, that nice gaming deck box, all of that.
So that get the nice dice X, you know.
I mean, I've already paid a company to make these before the game even came out. Like, you know, stitched around the edges, because you got to have stitched play mats. We didn't get those back when I was younger. They just like eventually would fray off and peel off of the, but yeah, stitched play mats, and, you know, you need all that stuff. So, from what I understand, Team Covenant, once the game releases, you could actually set up for a subscription service from them to where when each set comes out, they'll charge you and then they'll just ship it to your door. So you don't have to worry about figuring out who carries it or whatnot. That being said, caveat, I love Team Covenant. I love you guys very much. But if there ever came a time where we had a local community and a local game store that was really doing their best to provide for us a safe space weekly, not make us feel like we're like imposing on them and we're trying to carry the product other than just giving us a place to play, wanting to carry the product and ask for their support, I would probably shift it to them. Or I just might buy one from Team Covenant and one from, you know, them. So I have two play sets, provided I have, you know, maybe my family gets into it and my 11-year-old wants to play too. I can give her a play set of the game while I have a play set of the game. You never know. We'll figure it out. But that is the one thing that could pull me away, is if I had an opportunity to support my local store, because unfortunately Team Covenant is miles upon miles away. I think they're in Oklahoma.
Right.
So, but I still would support them with any chance I got, you know, because I love those guys, Steven and Zach and all of them there. They're amazing guys, and they keep they keep the hobby alive. They were there at the beginning of the YouTube explosion, providing people with an understanding of niche hobby. Like LCGs weren't like, oh my god, it's rivaling Magic. It's going to be the Magic the Gathering killer. But these guys were doing like podcasts about it. They were, doing content. They were doing tokens that you could buy. If you wanted to get it because your local game store wasn't supporting it, you could pay them and they would ship it to you.
That's cool.
So they've always supported like indie game. Well, I wouldn't call them indie games necessarily, but
Up and coming.
yeah, they weren't like heavy into Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. They were like focusing on these games that weren't getting as much love. And so I will always respect them for that. So mad props to you guys. Heads up on that. And in fact, they're both recently fathers. I both congratulated both of them. They both had their first kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Congrats, guys.
Steven and Zach. Congrats to them on that and fatherhood. I think they're in their 30s. I think so. They're like the bridge between us. Whereas I did this and I'm in my 40s now. They're in their 30s. They went from being professional gamers, doing all that, to like opening up their own game store, and now like do all this content online for the podcasts and supporting and like creating these subscription services and doing all this cool stuff. So, I'm really happy to see them succeed because owning a game store, I don't care what anyone says. The general thought process is, ooh, it'll be fun. I open this game store and I get to play games all the time. It is not simple. It is not fun. Okay, so like in my early 20s, I was an assistant manager at GameStop. You would think, oh, video game store, I get to play video games and talk about video games all day. If someone comes to me and goes, what do you think about Hello Kitty Adventure Island? I gotta go, oh, that's the greatest game ever. I don't know anything about the game. I'm gonna say it's the greatest game ever because I gotta sell that game. It's not, oh, well, I only play MMORPGs. You should play Final Fantasy. Or, I don't play first-person shooters. That's not my cup of tea. Everything's your cup of tea when you're working retail. Like, if you're selling it, it's a great product. So you gotta not only move the product, you gotta be knowledgeable about the product. You gotta, even if you don't like it, you don't like it when anyone asks about it. So there's a lot more that goes into all that. And when you're the owner of your own thing, so you're having to make these choices on what to stock, and that's all money that you've spent that you gotta get back, like with profit.
You're sinking a lot.
Yeah, you're sinking a lot into it. So I know it's not an easy thing. So the fact that you guys have figured out what you need to do and the niche you need to carve. This will be last of my Team Coming are awesome segment of the day, but power to you guys. Like, seriously. So, but all right, let's get the conversation started. We're going to talk about Earthborne games. So, just a backstory. Andrew Navarro. He started off at FFG. He worked his way up to being head of departments managerially. Then he became the CEO of the entire company after the guy that founded the company, stepped down. And then the company got bought out by Asmodee. This is my personal experience as someone that worked Gen Cons for Fantasy Flight Games for many years during their heyday, because at Fantasy Flight Games heyday, it was Google, it was Nike, it was, any of these big companies. You say, I'm here representing Fantasy Flight Games. That was a huge deal. They were the top dog. Their games were the top games, and you got to play one of the games from the heyday, Eldritch Horror.
Yeah, which I really enjoyed. I even bought the game myself, so very good game, and yeah.
Because they were very big on making sure you had an immersive experience, which for board games it's not easy to do. They did it with a lot of tokens, don't get me wrong. I get people in the board games who they always had too many tokens and cards and whatnot to fiddle with, and it was just too much. I appreciate your thoughts on that. For me, it was an okay amount, because the immersion I got from their games felt like nothing I'd had. I felt like I was playing like Final Fantasy and getting in the role of characters in a quick board game scenario. So it's like, I'm feeling involved in this board game in a way I've never felt involved. And it felt the theme too. It wasn't just like I felt involved. I felt involved to theme, like with Eldritch Horror, the previous example. I felt like I'm in like this Brendan Fraser, the Mummy, like serial experience with me and my friends while crazy shenanigans are happening. Some comedic, some horrifying, while we're all trying to save the world in our haphazard faction. You know, so, or, what was that, superhero movie that was really dinky that had Ben Stiller in it, All-Star by Smash Mouth was a theme song for it.
It was 1999,
yeah.
like Home, or,
My brain wants to say League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That is not the case. Good movie, but not the case. But that kind of is another feel for like what Eldritch Horror is.
True.
Anyway, that silly superhero movie, it felt like that, where we're trying to save the world, but each of us is in no way qualified to save the world. We're not like the most amazing people. We're like an attorney, a baker, a police officer, and you're like, yo, you gotta save the world or it's doomed. Okay, sure, why not? So, anyway, he was in there in their heyday. My personal experience from working Gen Cons or Fantasy Flight games, because I fell in love with them, and I was like, I would go to Gen Cons, and I was like, do you guys need help? Because I really love your games, and I want to help you guys out. So, they signed me on to, like, work Gen Cons and help teach board games and whatnot, and I got to experience a lot of fun Gen Cons because of that. They were a great company to work for. To me, when Asmodee took them over, it felt like what happened to the video game industry, and this is my personal experience, this is me not saying that they did this. This is not me saying anything negative about the company at all. This is just how I felt personally in the moment and going forward from that. So this is my personal experience. It felt like when EA bought all these video game companies so they could just be this juggernaut that owns like BioWare and all these, and all the games, because of micromanaging, in other words, start to suffer because of the decisions being made. Like, to me, that's what it felt like happened to all these major companies that got absolved under Asmodee. They said that they were going to let these companies work as normal, and they were just going to fund them the money and do the logistics and the backing. And so they didn't have to worry about all that stuff. All they had to do was focus on R&D and development, which sounded like a good idea. But at the same time, do we still talk about Fantasy Flight Games now to this day as this huge juggernaut? I had to introduce you to like their older stuff.
Yeah, I had no idea.
So like, that's my opinion completely. It just feels like that's what I saw from a guy that had involvement, but the most minor involvement being a guy that teaches board games at a Gen Con for this company. It felt like they were kind of getting micromanaged all of a sudden. They didn't do as much at Gen Con. They didn't have as many tables to teach in the expo hall. The pageantry of what they spent on it was not as much. You used to have these like Apple, like Steve Jobs, like sessions called the in-flight report that Fantasy Flight would do every year. That everyone would like, tickets would sell out. You would be lined up hoping to find a seat there, and it wouldn't work. And so that happened, and yeah, so you stopped having those. It stopped being the event that it was. Because it used to be like, this is all we're going to be working on, and surprise, and you're like, holy crap, no way, Avengers Endgame? Those kind of level like surprises when they announce, oh, we just got the license, bam, Star Wars game. You're like, what? And that didn't happen anymore, and it just didn't feel like the pomp and circumstance of it worked there. But that being the case, I'm going to take a quick pause. We'll be right back. Someone's knocking at the door, and I think I know who they are. So I am sorry about that, but the podcast at the moment. Slight pause. I thought it was someone here to work with my daughter. like I said in the last episode, and I said I wouldn't bring this up again, but because I had to stop there, I feel like it's important. I'm high functioning autistic. We're thinking my daughter, 2-year-old daughter, Zelina, might be autistic. We're waiting for an evaluation. They're a year out, but she's exhibiting a lot of symptoms. And the fact that I am, speaks highly to the possibility. So, she has someone working with her right now to, kind of help her keep up to speed and make sure, in case she is, that she's developing right. So, anyway, so that was what I stopped it for. I wouldn't have stopped it for anything that wasn't on that priority level of importance. But yeah, so like I said, Fantasy Flight started going down. We didn't have these in-flight reports. Like when L5R was about to be released, they hired, actors to come in wearing the different samurai armor for each of the different clans of Rokugan, all 6 clans, with like big samurai banners of their clan. And they had a parade marching down that eventually marched into the tournament hall for the very first, L5R LCG tournament called Kiku Matsuri, which is like a festival. And everyone that signed up for that tournament got bought a core set. So you were just playing with 1 core set, not 3. And you would make a deck, like you would make a deck in the first inaugural tournament of that game happened. I was a judge for that. Cause again, working for Fantasy Flight Games, so that was my internal experience. I was a judge for that tournament. And it was super cool, and they would do things like that. And then like for the expo hall, like, they actually built like big, like torii arches. It made like a Japanese shrine that you like learn the game inside. Like that's the level of like E3, like crazy, like money that was being thrown at the pomp and circumstance for the game. And then by the time these days, it doesn't feel like that level has ever come back. Though, caveat, I will be fair. I always try to be fair. It doesn't feel like any of that level of pomp and circumstance all went down post coming back from COVID. It feels like COVID kind of sapped the oomph from it a little bit. So part of that I will put onto that. I even worked the first year it came back from COVID. We all had to wear masks. And I was working at that time for Renegade Games, as a DM for their, tabletop role-playing games for like Power Rangers and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm sure that was tough. You'd be like talking and they pull it and you're like, what are you saying? And then you're like, yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of that.
Oh yeah. Which is funny because at Gen Con, I often wear kilts. So while this is all covered up, I'm like just free into the wind, like waist below with a kilt. So very, very interesting time to say the least, I guess. But anyway, so Asmodee takes over, Asmodee. It's a French company. I'm not sure exactly. I think it's Asmodee is how that's pronounced. But anyway, could be wrong. Andrew decides to leave. And I do not fault him for that at all. Love you, buddy. He decides, and he talked about this in a interview with Team Covenant, bringing them up again, but it's okay because they're awesome. That, you know, it would have been easy for him to like develop board games or to go work for another company and like do this or that or this or that. And this is true. He decides to make his own company to do things the way he wanted to do it. And on top of that, he decides he's going to try to do LCGs, which I don't remember the term we're calling this. I call it LCGs because that's all what it was up until this point, where we have a different name for the genre. Because LCGs, living card games, what it stood for was an FFG, like trademarked the term. Whatever that term is, I'm going to call it LCGs. I apologize in advance. I don't know the term. Even if I learn the term, I'll probably just revert to it because I called it that for 7 years of my gaming life. So it'll be called LCGs. The problem with LCGs, because I talked in the last episode about how much I loved LCGs. And I do. I love them entirely. The problems, like I talked about last episode, were bloat and the splitting of the card pool between 3 core sets could be slightly frustrating to people trying to understand, why did I need to buy 3 of that? Why didn't it all come in one box? So that one's a minor one. The big one is bloat, because after the game's been going on long enough, it went from like $120 buy-in to a $900 buy-in, which is, those are 2 very different numbers in the valley between a person that's interested in your game willing to buy in at 120. Sure, that's really cheap. 900. What the hell?
Yeah.
I gotta really think about this.
Yeah, quite the barrier to entry.
Yeah, so, starts off better than a card game, a CCG, TCG model, ends up becoming worse than. So because of those problems, and because of whatever decisions, things that happen, licenses getting pulled, there's a myriad of reasons. So I'm not trying to say it's as simple as LCG failed. But if you look at it historically, outside of a cooperative LCG, which they had those, Eldritch Horror made a cooperative CCG where each of you made a deck for your little investigator, and you all took your decks and tried to beat like the Eldritch Horror scenario, figure and find the clues and whatnot. And your deck was like your actions and like your items that you could use to explore the arcane mysteries that are coming out before you. Fun concept. They also had a Lord of the Rings one. You all made different characters. I would make a Frodo deck. You would make a Samwise Gamgee deck. Mm-hmm. And we would like try to go in like whatever random scenario that the deck, the enemy deck was, you would flip them out. Oh, all of a sudden we're attacked by orcs, or oh, all of a sudden Gollum showed up, or, you know, whatever. And you would like, if y'all all built your decks right. And then the final one was Marvel Champions. You all got like decks that you would build for your superhero. I'm going to play the Hulk. You're going to play Thor. And we got to fight. Today we're fighting Thanos or whatever. Or today we're all going to try to fight like Venom, whatever. And it was super fun and cool in its own rights. Mm. Those all did well, didn't have a problem. I would view the difference between a competitive LCG and a cooperative LCG, in my opinion, from my experience, is this. A cooperative LCG is more of a board game that you socialize with friends playing. Even though it is deck building, it is a card game, it feels more like a social board game. Whereas a competitive LCG, 1v1, there is a winner and a loser, and it's one of us that are playing for each of those titles, winner and loser, is more like a CCG or TCG. It needs tournaments, it needs organized play. It's a different beast. You and your friends can literally just play ad nauseum the cooperative one. It's you to get together to try to whoop on like the enemy. That's fine and it's fun. Don't get me wrong, and that's why it does well. But I think it engenders a different space mentally. Like you don't feel like you're playing a card game, because even if you had 4 players sitting around playing Commander, that's a different feel than 4 players sitting around playing a board game. You're still trying to annihilate each other. With this, you're kind of cooperating with each other. I think that changes the dynamic. So every cooperative LCG has had a good track run and done really well. Every competitive one, for myriads of reasons, like 40K in my last episode, I told you the license got pulled from it. So things have happened one way or the other. Bloat's not always the thing that kills a competitive LCG, but for whatever reason, most competitive LCGs did not have a long track record, struggled for their various reasons to grow and keep relevant in their unique niche spheres. Because again, they're not gonna unseat Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, like Pokemon, like Magic, any of those. There could be a cultural phenomenon where one does. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but because anyone could buy in at the same level, and there's not this whole like cool aesthetic of my cards might be worth $1,000 if I pull this chase rare, I feel like they're never going to get the same volume of level. And you could take that in the gambling argument, because they don't have that gambling aspect. If I open a booster, I'm trying to get a rare card, or the collective aspect of what gets them there is because you're going to have people that just want to collect the rare cards. So for whatever reason, argument being what it is, I don't feel that an LCG space is out the gate trying to be the next Magic the Gathering. If it gets there, great, but I don't think it comes out the gate trying to be that, trying to break it.
And I think too, like, you know, it's just trying to get itself out there. It's trying to set up its own uniqueness. I think that's what, you know, most LCGs are trying to do, even with the pomp and circumstance that sometimes is added to it initially, or, you know, maybe throughout. And I think too, like, cooperative just has such a different feel, to it than, you know, like you said, that competitive 1v1 spirit, because cooperatively, right, we're all working together, right, towards this, non-organic game, you know, enemy opponent. It's not, you know, it's not somebody that's sitting in the same room with you, unless like the game designates them to be, you know, hey, we're all working towards this common goal together. So it's supposed to, again, bring you closer, probably even more closer than you would be 1v1. But, you know, even in the 1v1 aspects, especially if you're playing against somebody who, you know, maybe they have a deck that's beating yours, or, you know, just maybe they have more knowledge and skill, in how they're playing, and they're just whomping on you, and you have no, like, real, you know, incentive to continue playing, because, you know, all you're doing is losing. Where if you do win, right, you may feel like, oh, maybe they're just pitying, you know, giving this win to me out of pity, or you had to build your deck just to beat their deck, which isn't a great thing to fill up either. No, you don't want those glass cannon decks that, you know, you're just like, you know, and then you go play the next person, and then it's, you know, they just trash you. Yeah. So, no, I definitely, feel for that. But, you know, I think, you know, with what, you know, kind of Hubworld's doing, I really like kind of where it's kind of taking the difference in, how some of these other LCGs are going, and maybe taking the best of some of these other past games and really bringing it together.
Right. So, all that long-winded exposition is to say that up until the point of Earthborne Games, competitive LCGs have not shown an ability to be sustainable financially, or you know, as a game done well in a sense of business decisions. Now, I mean, from a game decision, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not judging it on a game decision. I love LCGs, and I love the idea and the mentality of it. I love that it's not about collecting the rare cards. It's about everyone being given the same deck of cards, and the skill of the players being what gets you through, because anyone could have the exact same winning deck as anyone else, because everyone has the same card pool, the same amount of that card pool, you know, the full play set to pull from. So it's not, I've got the rares, or I had the money to get the rares and you didn't, so screw you. Or whoever can afford to pay the most money is going to tend to do better overall. It felt more skill based. So I loved them, but I'm just saying, from like a business model, if I'm CEO of a company, I would look at it and go, maybe they didn't do that well. They only had a couple years. They petered out for whatever reason. And again, multiple different reasons, but at some point, even if you have 1,000 different reasons, if I see 1,000 games and not a single one of them lasted more than 3 years, yes, there was 1,000 different reasons for that, but I'm also going to be leery about when I need to make my game. Do I make a TCG, CCG, or LCG? Well, no LCGs lasted past 3 years. Do I? That seems like a bad business decision, right?
Well, and then not even that, right? Like, even on the player base side, right? If I'm going to take the time to invest my time and money into a new game, right? Is it even worth my time to invest in a company or game where it might not even last, you know, very long? And you know, just kind of give to the testament of even Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, or Magic the Gathering. You know, it's not to say they're too big to fail, but when they have maybe these ups and downs with, you know, a new set release, or, you know, something they put out that maybe isn't so tasteful, you know, they can kind of weather the storm on those bad decisions,
right,
whether on a business aspect or a gaming aspect. And I think too, like, you know, with a game that is coming out and it's, you know, trying to form its identity and its uniqueness and bring that engagement, like, we really need to be careful, especially just because, you know, even the capital of the company, the initial start, you know, especially if it's, you know, someone that isn't some large corporate conglomerate. It's, it needs to have that, uniqueness and identity to it to keep people coming back and really wanting to invest their time and money into it.
So completely agree. So all of that, is to further say, he made the decision for his first game for the company to be a cooperative LCG. Now, again, just in LCG in general, that's a risky maneuver, but you can see his devotion to this principle just in that. I'm going to come out the game swinging. I'm going to try to do what, to reinvent the wheel. Not really, but perfect knowing the problems, a system that I think could succeed if done differently, but not completely differently, like a reinvent the wheel, but done smartly in a way that could succeed. And that was Earthborne Rangers. That was his first cooperative card game. I don't know anything about this other than what I could kind of piecemeal from seeing podcasts and it being talked about by Team Covenant and others. So from my gathering is you're all kind of like in a medieval setting. Maybe it's post-apocalyptic, that there was a great civilization, but now you're just kind of in this dark ages or something. I'm not sure exactly, but for whatever reason, it's in a medieval setting, whether that's because there was a great civilization and you're on the other side of it, or you're just in the medieval time period and you're all rangers exploring nature. And you apparently, I think there's a day and a night time, and you all have your own decks. You're trying to set up what you're doing in this environment during the day and the night. Are you exploring the fauna? Are you exploring the flora? And your interactions with that, and you're trying to achieve this goal or something like that. So again, I don't know about this game, so it's piecemeal what I gathered and what I'm hoping is the correct answer for this. But overall, it being cooperative, I think was the right move for the very first one, first off. But two, it succeeded. Gangbusters. From my understanding, the initial launch of it was huge, and now it's doing well out in the sphere. Then they had an expansion that came out for it. I think either soon there'll be another expansion, or this is the first expansion. They had to do a reprinting run. It was a lot.
Wow, just because of how popular.
It's very popular. I mean, it's its niche for cooperative LCGs. I'm not saying everyone and their uncle's talking about this game, but it is very popular by those that like it, love it, and it's gaining a lot of popularity. I'm not sure in the sphere of the nerd population, the percentage of people that all love this game, but I know it's received well, it's critically done well, and it looks like an amazing game. So that being said, they decided to make their next game a competitive one. And, this I can speak more to, besides the fact that both of us have played this game, so we both understand the game in general. But, apparently, Corey, who was also an FFG employee before moving on to other, opportunities. I think he was at WizKids at the time. And his roommate, had both kind of developed this game, because there was a competitive LCG called Netrunner, which was originally a CCG before the card game bubble burst of the mid 90s. Everyone and their uncle had a CCG at the time. There was CCGs for Werewolf, the role-playing game, and Vampire, the role-playing game. They actually had a competitive CCG at the time. Everyone and their uncle had a CCG. Austin Powers had a CCG to play. If you were that inclined for Austin Powers, everyone had a CCG. It was just but just the .com bubble burst, that bubble burst, and all the CCGs all about damn near died, besides Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and Magic. They're only really, I think, the only three that escaped that. L5R did, but then would die later on. But the only one's still around today from that time period that survived the bubble burst, and to this day, I think are those three. So you had that happen, and Netrunner died during that time period, but it was an asymmetrical game where you had one half the players would play cyberpunk like hackers trying to hack into these corporate to get information they could sell to the highest bidder, and the other half the game was you played the corporation who had like all these servers with like, you know, subroutines and firewalls and antiviral programs that were meant to like catch and like destroy the hackers while they were in their like matrix like run on their grid. And so it was an interesting asymmetrical game. FFG picks it up and releases it at LCG, just like they did for L5R. And it was super popular at the time. And it required you to go to a tournament with 2 decks. You'd have your runner deck for which runner you wanted to play, and the corporation deck, which corporation you played. And you would play like 50-50, kind of like playing black or white in chess. Kind of in a tournament, you'd switch back and forth. So you had to know how to play both sides of this asymmetrical game and had to be good at playing both sides. So it was very interesting. It was going on at the same time as L5R, so I didn't play that because I was playing L5R and my team was playing L5R. But I don't begrudge people that did. It was a very interesting game. It had a lot of popularity. It was about that time that they came up right before both of these games would die and the pandemic would happen, that they were going to do rotation because that was supposed to solve bloat. If we rotated the cards like CCGs do, then the buy-in wouldn't be as bad and the game would be more fresh. I agreed 100% with this. A huge chunk of the population, because LCG players had a kind of a board game mentality. You mean the game that I spent money on is no longer valid? That's bullshit, malarkey. I don't want to curse, I don't know if I can bleep this out, but they got really, 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 really upset at this concept. They did not like it. Where some of us could see the writing on the wall and knew the problems of bloat, thought, yeah, it sucks that, you know, some of the cards we bought, because there's no intrinsic value to cards after they're no longer standard legal, because this isn't a collectible game. They're just null and void unless you want to play like a legacy format or something. I could understand that, but at the same time, if it's getting more people and the game's surviving and the game's growing, I'll lose some money. I'm happy. It's not like I spent a lot anyway. I spent maybe $100, $200 a year. They'd be competitively tournament viable. That's not
comparative to everything else.
Yeah, comparative to everything else in a competitive gaming environment, card games, whatever. I don't care what you play. Competitively, that's, unless you're playing like a board game competitively, like Catan Pro Players or something like that. Outside of like doing a board game that doesn't change, like Catan or Monopoly professionally, when you play in the world champs for those things, your investment to money is always much higher. Like even in like professional video gaming, the new console comes out, you got a $600 buy-in for that. Then you got to buy the new version of the game.
Yep, and usually the games cost more because it's the new console.
You need pro controllers that wear out and you have to constantly replace. Headphones. To pay for all that, you're probably Twitch streaming, so you need a microphone, you need a webcam, you need lighting to do your Twitch streaming to help fund your gaming habit. I mean, list goes on. So gaming in general, competitively in anything, is expensive. I'll even do you one better, like even in chess. Well, these days, maybe it's a lot better where you can read books digitally and stuff like that, but back when I was like, you know, we didn't have the internet like we do now, you needed to buy chess books and constantly read up on the newest chess books, the newest theories and whatnot. You needed to pay for a chess teacher that was going to keep you honed and sharp and coach. You needed to go to the gym and keep in shape. You needed to pay for dietary food to keep yourself physically fit. I mean, like, there's no professionalism in like trying to be pro at something competitive in a competitive environment that doesn't come with costs outside the initial or anything like that. So off topic, I know, but so they try to do that. They try to do rotation. You know, it never really got to come to fruition to see if that would help an LCG or not, because then we ended up, you know, being where we are with the pandemic and the game's going back to the wayside. So in this time around, at initial launch, we already know from Earthborne Games that the first, or the newest, I guess you shouldn't say the first, because that gives the wrong direction for this. The newest 4 games expansions will be legal. So the one that we just kickstarted, or it was game founded, but 6 to 1 half dozen the other language wise, will be the first expansion. Then every 6 months they'll release another expansion for $100 retail is what we're assuming. Can't guarantee that, but we'll see. Then, so that'll be year 1, you'll see that and a new expansion come out. Then year 2, the 3rd and 4th. Then year 3, the 5th expansion will come out. That very first one that we just game founded will fall off. And then the next one, then that, and so the new one comes out, the last one falls off, and that chain just keeps going forward. So even if a new player came and saw us playing at the table and we're like, oh, this game looks like super cool. What do you got to do to play? Well, you just got to buy a set. It's $100. Well, that's really good. What do I got to do to play competitively? Well, I would suggest buying the last 3 sets, the newest 3 sets, at $100 each. And then when the next set comes out, unless at the time they're at the table, they just came out like that day, so he has 6 months to play with it, then I might say buy all 4. But I might say buy 3 and then wait for the next one to come out, and then you'll have all 4, and then you should be well-to-do for a while. It's always ever going to be, at most, a $400 buy-in or a $300 buy-in, depending on your preference on how to tell someone. So I like that a lot because there's a limit.
And I think you said, right, these releasing, 2 sets a year?
Yeah, only 2 a year.
Yeah, I mean, and you think about, other, just card games, like Magic the Gathering. I mean, I think they were releasing them, a quarterly.
3, and I think you still get a core set, too.
Yeah, so you got about 3 or 4 sets releasing a year. I mean, I really like that, the rotation would be a lot slower. You're not, as soon as you buy a set, it's not going to go by the wayside pretty quickly. So you have a lot of, lead time on when the next set rotates. And what I really like, too, is, again, the low cost, the low barrier to entry, for players. If you really break it up or look at it as an annual base cost rather than month over month. Oh, I'm paying, $100, this day on this month. Oh, that's a lot. You really look at it on an annual or 12-month perspective. You get to see the cost breakdown is so much cheaper compared to buying a booster box from Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon. It's so much cheaper. And I think too, whenever you hear maybe an objection to not buying, they really need to zoom out. And for those that may have never, bought a card game, it's honestly worth all of its money. And again, very cheap, comparative to any other, card game I've experienced. So, really think that there needs, really applaud them for, this rotation, that they're having. I think it's really nice, too. And again, it gives us a lot of time to really, look at what sets are available and really, find the best solution, right? And know which ones, are kind of, maybe the best for the meta at the time. So.
Yeah. And so we got that going for it. And, we had said on the last one when I was long-windedly talking about LCGs and continued on to this one, just to kind of give everyone a primer. I know some of you were in the LCG, so this is oh my God, would he quit talking about this? But like I said, $15 packs, 6 packs. So you never really felt like you got a lot. I'm exploring 1/6 of this expansion. It doesn't, I may have gotten 1 or 2 cards from my faction. It doesn't feel like I really get to explore a lot. Whereas when, an enjoyment for a CCG is you get that big thing, you're trying to explore all the different cards. Oh, what new combinations can I come up? What new things can I find out or explore? Well, you don't get that when you have these micro packs because you're getting, 2 cards for each faction. It's Mom?
Yeah.
So, putting the entire expansion in one release. Also, there not being a core that's always evergreen, but instead the first pack is an expansion in of itself. The fact that they're not cores 40, 40, 40, it's no, here retail 100, assuming that's what it gets to retail for. At the time of this, we don't know what crazy tariffs or crazy president. Don't put me in prison. I'm white. Maybe that helps. I don't know. I mean, they probably tell me I'm still some part of MS-13. I don't know. they'll tattoo like the thing on my head, or I don't know. So anyway, politics aside, we don't know what crazy tariffs are doing. It is a real possibility that could hurt. It is definitely hurting the board game sphere as we know it right now. Most of board games are constructed and shipped from China. The profit margin is slim. I mean, it's not crazy because you have all this physical stuff that has to be produced, and then you have to pay for that and then hope your profit margin is not overpriced to get someone in on the door. Whereas like digitally, you know, a CD or a digital download, you can get a better profit margin per thing. I mean, I know that costs more to have to make that too. Maybe, I don't know. Outside of all the finances, right now there's a lot of companies that have already started pausing like their production on board games until they can figure out what they can do or what they have. And so I can't say for 100% that it will be 100, but we're assuming it will be 100. So that way, if you're watching this in the far-flung future, we were either right or wrong. So, see?
Yeah.
But, the fact that it's not like buying cores and that adds up and it's not confusing to have to tell someone, well, you got to buy 3 cores and have to explain to them why that is. It's like, nope, you just buy that thing for 100 and you got a full playset of the game. And when another expansion comes out, you once again, you just buy that for 100 and you got a full new playset to add to that playset. And so I think that's like a huge simplification that makes it easier for players to get excited about it and not be overwhelmed by the complexity and weirdness. Well, you gotta buy 3 cores and then you gotta buy these little 6 mini packs for each it's nothing convoluted, nothing crazy. It's simple. It's easy to understand. $100. Bop, 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 bop. Keep going. Every 6 months, bop. We're good. So I like that.
Yeah, and if you put that on like a cost perspective, right? Like every 6 months, what's that like? It's 30, $15.
About $16.50.
Yeah. So, really, I think it's very affordable, even cheaper than a Netflix subscription or anything like that, comparatively. I think that's, a great, buy-in. But I'm really happy, with kind of how the game's deciding, or the company is deciding to, go about this just to get, players, involved or new players, to the game. So.
And then that leads us to our final point of decision they made. And this, I understand to a lot of players it's not a huge thing, but I think, so when they first started, one of the things Andrew wanted was sustainability in his games. He wanted to make sure that he had knowledge of how the games were produced. They were using like appropriate things, not just like harming the environment and screwing everyone over just for the sake of $1. So part of the only way to really do that, because you can't control what China's going to do, and they're going to say they do one thing and maybe do the other. And we already know the condition of the workers and everything else that goes into all that in China. Is he decided he wanted to produce his games locally so he could make sure that they were made sustainably. And so as such, he's secured printing in America and Germany way before any of this tariff stuff happened, which turns out may be the best play ever, because now China's like, anyone that was getting stuff made in China is kind of screwed, and he's sitting here like, well, my stuff's not made there. Woo!
Yeah, and maybe that's going to help with, hopefully getting things on time and maybe keeping costs low because, there's no impact, at least here in the U.S.
Well, I'm sure the costs are probably double or triple to get this stuff made, which means his profit margins are either slimmer or something like that, because I can't imagine having stuff made in a first world country where people are taken care of is going to be anywhere near the price of what you get having it printed by slave workers in China. I mean, that's just an unfortunateness. I'm not trying to be mean. That's just a fact. Like,
yeah, I mean, getting paid $1 an hour, wage and no health care and,
But that goes and speaks to the character of Andrew, because you made that choice knowing there was no way you were giving up that chunk to make sure that it was done right and done fair and done correct.
Yeah,
so
there's no like moral, implications there. We know it's being done, correct.
And it's not like you could even cash in that moral high ground. It's not like he could just go to like Gen Con and be like, our stuff is the only stuff not made by slave labor. I'm sure to some people it would matter. I'm not saying that the population at large is like insensitive to that, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there's a large section of gamers that like, I want to pay $50 a game. If it's slave labor, that's what it takes. I don't want to pay $100 to make sure it's sourced by, fair labor. So there's a swath of population that feels that way, and there's nothing, I'm not judging. I'm just saying that's the case. You can't cash that in. It's not like politics where you can cash in moral decisions for a net benefit.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you could cash that in the gamer sphere. I mean, to certain people it does matter.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a huge cash in that you can say that and then everyone's like, oh, we're only going to buy Earthborne games and we're never touching Asmodee or Wizards of the Coast or whatever because they use that. If that was the case, we'd have seen something decades ago.
Oh, absolutely.
In the industry.
Yeah, and I mean, even those that even maybe object to even where the pricing is, like, that's factored in, and I have no problem with that, like, I think that's, a good, solid, route to take, and, Andrew probably, can sleep better knowing, or sleep well at night knowing, like, hey, it was made, the right way, no moral quandaries there, and, we have a good product that's, recyclable, and, again, he's keeping, putting values into, his company and the route they're trying to take. So pretty cool.
So yeah, like, those things done, I think are amazing steps. We talked about the history and progression to where we are now. Last thing to talk about on this, episode is the Game Found campaign itself. So we talked about that. They talked about sustainability, the release schedule, the price point, stuff like that. The only things we really haven't talked about as far as or touched on in generally talking about this is, the fact that it succeeded with like over 150%. Their goal was 200,000. And they got like 330 something thousand. I don't remember the exact number at the end, but they did well. And they succeeded, which is the important thing, because that means we get to play the game when it releases. Like, even if it was 201,000, I'd say congratulations, because that means I get to buy my game and play my game that I want to play. So, but no, they did better than that. I don't know gaming enough these days, because I'm being a father of two, which is a recent development in the last couple years. I don't game as much as I used to, so maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like Game Found is nowhere near as popular as Kickstarter. I don't know if there's a difference between the two. Like, maybe Kickstarter does some hinky stuff, so there's a good moral reason to pick Game Found over them, or I'm not sure choice-wise or why they went with Game Found. I don't know. But I feel like it would have probably done better on Kickstarter, so I'm sure they had their reason, because I think everyone knows Kickstarter. So that's the popular site to do it, so maybe they could have done better. So I can only imagine they had a reason to pick Game Found, that there was something better they were getting out of it that helped them. Same reason they chose sustainability. They picked a different route because it did something. I can't imagine they didn't do the same reason for Game Found. I just don't know what it is, because I don't know enough about that to speak on it, but they've still succeeded, even considering those constraints, I guess is what I'm saying. And one thing he talked about in different interviews is with Team Covenant and others, the reason he picked 200,000, because he could have picked a lower number and they would have succeeded like that, like so many other like Kickstarters and Game Founds. Pick this low number and like, boom, hey, our thing succeeded in 10 minutes. Woo! Kind of like flag waving is a lot of those companies, and I didn't know this, so that was interesting to learn. They actually have a secondary goal they didn't tell you about that they need to make. Like, they may put the goal at 50,000 to be successful, but they need to make like 100,000 or 150,000 to actually break even with the amount of production they would need and the cost and whatnot. They did that so it would get hype up in the hopes that you would push up to this unknown secondary number they haven't disclosed.
And they're like,
But,
whew, like,
yeah,
maybe-
we made it. But apparently that's the reason sometimes you'll be like kickstarting something, they decide to cancel it, and you don't know why, because it succeeded. Because they didn't hit that secondary number. So they're like, we're going to lose money if we keep this up. We couldn't get there. So they cancel it instead, so they don't know, no one owes them, and they don't owe no one, and they don't lose money. So Andrew decides, I'm going to do 200,000. That's a really high goal. We're not going to probably succeed in like 10 minutes like all these other games that can flag wave and go, woo, 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 we made it. But it's the honest number. If I make 200,000, I'm just telling you what the number we need. We need this to break even, to fund what we need to fund going forward, so this game's on legs and not limping.
Yeah.
And I applaud him for that decision, because again, the sustainability decision, this decision, trying to make LCGs work instead of gouges for booster packs, and a collectability aspect that take it or leave it. Again, this goes back into our previous discussion last episode. As a competitive player, I'm not there for the collective aspect. I'll pay $500 for a deck because I want to win. But if I could pay $100 for a full playset of the game and know I can now win, I'm happier with that. That's why I love LCGs. I'm not there to collect. I'm not there for this like Wall Street of card economics. I just want a good deck so I can test my skills, improve my skills, and get better at a game that I enjoy playing. You give me what you determine the price point of that, and if you can sell me on it, that's great, but it's easier to sell me on $100 every 6 months than $500 to $200 or $200 depending on the set to keep playing. And so, as a spike is the term for those that know the card game spikes, Timmy's and Johnny's. As two spikes, I do appreciate that you've taken out the financial burden of trying to be the best, instead made it a fair across the board. So everyone's at the same starting point. Everyone has the same level of cards, and we can get into it at the same level. And if you want to make that crazy combo deck, you have all the cards to make all the crazy one-turn OTK, one-turn kill decks you want, or infinite loot decks, whatever. But if you're a spike player that just wants to like destroy your opponent, you have those same cards. If you just like playing casually over the table, you still have those same cards. No one had a different price point. Everyone's at the same level, fairly given the same number, the same receipt bill of lading as everyone else. And then it's what you do with that. That's your choice. And I appreciate that. So
I did too. And I appreciate too, like, you know, it's not like after you buy the cards and the sets go out of rotation, you still can't use that set. Maybe in a cubed format. And for those that don't know what cubed is, you know, where you take sets that, are out of rotation or maybe out of order, right? You got the first set, and then you got set number 8 and then set number 13. And maybe you want to just use those 3 sets, and that would be like your own cubed format, as they say, to where you can put those 3 sets together and kind of create your own combinations out of it. So I think that's pretty cool too. Like, you're not necessarily losing out when the sets rotate. You can always still use them. You're always going to have them because of the set being there and what it is, right?
And each set is its own draftable cube when it's released. So even if you just bought one set and that was your extended play, you could always cube that set with your friends later on and draft that set with your friends, up to 4 players. So if you bought 2 of the 100s, you could do 8 players, or 3 of the 100 sets for that expansion. You could do 12-player cube. But the fact is that it's completely draftable and completely cubable, which is huge because I didn't even think about that till you mentioned it. That was another drawback of LCGs, is that with the set coming out in little $15 packs, and then the 3 cores, LCGs were but one, not draftable, and cube was damn near impossible to do with the game. So there was no limited format. You just either played standard, organized play, limited, anything goes, but again, there was no rotation, so that's standard for these games. But if they had rotated, if they had lived long enough to follow through on FFG's idea of rotation, then you would have that everything goes format, or casual play. That was it. So there was no way for stores to get extra money, because, you know, stores, they're giving you their time and space to sit there and play with stuff that you've already spent money on. And there's nothing wrong with that. I do not begrudge that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it helps stores to have limited play, because it allows them occasionally to go, we're going to do a booster draft tournament this Friday for Magic, or a sealed tournament. And everyone then buys product and then plays in those environments, and they enjoy those limited formats. There's a lot of people that will only come away from over-the-counter casual, like, play, like kitchen sink play, and will only come out to a tournament if it's limited, because they don't have these $100 rare cards. And so this evens the playing field. Everyone's drafting, you know, their cards. So they'll come out to those events, and everyone's spending money at the store. That guy is literally the tournament director, the owner of the store that's running this tournament, is literally selling 3 booster packs a person to play in this tournament. And if you get like 30 people, you know, he's selling a booster box that night, and that at least helps him out. Yeah. So limited play was always helpful for the brick and mortar, just in general, from a financial concept. Mm-hmm. Now that this will change, because I don't know, like, there's any kind of way you could incentivize this at the brick and mortar level, because you're buying a full play set of cards. So you won't have that option, but at least you have limited play options where you can cube, you can draft this game, but not at the same financial level that you could with a CCG, but at least it's one step further that an LCG never had access to.
Sure. And to, like, I don't know if I said it, but like brick and mortar, like, support it all the way, you know. Hopefully there is, you know, ways in which brick and mortar, you know, buying of this game can be promoted. You know, again, I really like, again, that engagement, but I understand that, all right, like, we're just starting off, so, you know, maybe some updates in the future. So.
Right. Well, we've already bypassed an hour already again, but that was the end of what we wanted to talk about, so that's good. So now we've talked about the company and kind of their history and what they're doing for this game. Next one will be a little more involved. Our next episode, we're going to talk about the mechanics of the game and go through what we think about the mechanics and personally, and then kind of like maybe discuss what we like about them. Anyway, thank you for tuning in again. I'm appreciative you stuck all through that, and really appreciate you guys viewing that have. It means a lot to us. So we'll look forward to seeing you the next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Hubcast Aidalon. From everyone involved, we appreciate your continued support and wish you a great day and a wonderful week.